Hello, everybody. Welcome to the beginning of the Houston Climate Week. My name is Atul Arya. I work at a company called IHS Market. Currently based in Boston and have lived in Houston several times in my career. And it's great to be here with Mayor Sylvester Turner, Mayor of the City of Houston, and Mauricio Gutierrez, who is the President and Chief Executive of NRG, the major utility in Texas and, of course, in the city of Houston. So at the kickoff of the Houston Climate Week, we're going to talk about the Climate Week itself. The city of Houston has put together a climate action plan. We will talk about the climate action plan. And most interestingly for me, we're going to hear from our two great speakers about making Houston the renewable energy capital of the world. So, of course, we all know that the Houston has been and is the oil capital of the world, but turning that into the renewable energy capital of the world will be part of the discussion. So with that, I would like to welcome Mayor Turner. Mayor Turner, welcome to the Houston Climate Week.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And it's good to be with you. And it's good to be with Mauricio, with NRG. And look, it's going to be an exciting week. Looking forward to Climate Week and a number of outstanding speakers. And I think we've got a good audience that's going to be a part of this Climate Week as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mauricio Gutierrez, welcome to you as well.
Thank you, Atul. It's great to be here with you and with Mayor Turner in this kickoff session of the Houston Climate Week. And at least we can see each other virtually in this webinar. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
That's right. Well, sure, world we live in. So before we talk about the Climate Action Plan and the Climate Week, I would like both of you to reflect on the fact that, we are starting this week with the anniversary of the third anniversary of Hurricane Harvey. So, Mr. Mayor, could you share with you your reflections? What has happened in the last 3 years?
Look, thank you. And this is the third year anniversary of Hurricane Harvey. More rain fell on this city than any other city in the United States history. Got as much as 50 inches of water that fell on this city. But put that in its context. City of Houston faced 3 500-year floods in 3 consecutive years. The Memorial Day flood in 2015, the Tax Day flood, a 500-year flood in 2016, and then, of course, Hurricane Harvey in 2017. So we recognize, for example, that these storms are coming with greater intensity and greater frequency, and Hurricane Harvey was the mother of them all. The entire city pretty much was impacted. It didn't matter whether you were living in a low-income community or in an affluent neighborhood. Rain fell on you and you were impacted. It didn't matter what your nationality, religion, your faith, wherever you came from, you were impacted. And I would say we had over 100,000 single-family homes that were impacted, over 200,000 apartment units that were impacted. People were displaced. And so we recognized that we just couldn't continue to do things as we have done them in the past. Harvey was a game changer, and it pretty much had set us up for enacting the city's first ever climate action plan.
So same question to you, Mauricio. What has NRG learned, and what are you doing differently now that we are in another hurricane season?
Well, as you mentioned, NRG is a company with deep roots in Houston, and the impact of Hurricane Harvey was really here at home. It was very personal. It impacted our customers, the communities where we live and work, and our employees saw it firsthand. After the hurricane, we learned a lot about the importance of the role that we play in supporting our people, our customers in the time of need. And we took many of these lessons that we learned and actually have applied it during this pandemic. As I mentioned before, the first and foremost was protecting the safety and well-being of our people so we could continue providing the services to this important service of electricity to our communities, supporting our customers and understanding that this was a time of need and helping our community. So a lot of the lessons that we learned during Hurricane Harvey, we actually have had the opportunity to, to implement it during this pandemic.
Yeah. So we are learning that the climate is a great equalizer, as you say, Mr. Mayor, that it didn't matter your faith, you're rich, you're poor, everybody was impacted. So then came about your climate action plan, the city of Houston. So could you say a little bit about the action plan? What is
Sure.
in it?
Look, we made the decision that we were not going to try to build back, because if you build back to the way you were building for failure. Okay. And then we made some changes. We've said that people who were building after Hurricane Harvey, you had to build higher. We put in more detention. We also implemented green stormwater infrastructure. But we also discovered with all of those measures that you couldn't build your way forward, so to speak, out of it. Because the storms were coming with greater frequency and greater intensity, and hence the climate action plan. This is climate action. Climate change is a global phenomenon, global challenge, and quite frankly, it requires some global solutions. And so what we have done is that we wanted to continue to adhere to the Paris Accord. I am co-chair of the United States Climate Mayors, along with Mayor Garcetti of LA and Mayor Walsh of Boston. And so we are committed to those greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. But frankly, I would tell you we want to do it even sooner. But we also recognize, and the emphasis is not just, this is a car-centric sort of city, but it also requires a paradigm shift. So more emphasis on mass transit, more emphasis on renewables. This is the energy capital of the world, but we also want to lead in being the energy transition. And so is now moving to utilization of more renewables. And then at the same time, the goal of the climate action plan, one of it is to create 50 new energy 2.0 companies by 2025. So it's a very ambitious plan, but the city of Houston, the municipality, can't do it by itself. And so that's why it's so critically important that we have partners like NRG, who is a vital, critical partner to the city of Houston, working with the advocates, strong advocates, for example, environmental advocates and others, but also sitting down at the table with our corporate leaders to say we have to come to the table and find win-win solutions. And so the climate action plan is very ambitious. We've set goals, and we fully recognize that in order to achieve them, we're going to need everybody at the table in good faith to achieve these objectives, hopefully sooner than 2050.
Sure. So Mauricio, as Mr. Mayor is saying that, looking for partners, and NRG is a major partner with this climate action plan. What motivated you to partner with the city?
Yes, well, first and foremost, we share the vision that Mayor Turner has articulated in his climate action plan. And, this is really what motivated us to partner with him. We've had a long-standing partnership with the city of Houston. We've been their electric provider since 2001. Mm-hmm. And we are very proud of what we have accomplished together, from backup generation solutions to increase the resiliency of the system, to energy efficiency, and community initiatives like the Beat the Heat centers that Mayor Turner has visited a number of times. Back in April 30th, we announced a partnership with the city to help them achieve the goal of 100% renewable energy. And we're very excited to be able to, to get them on a path, as Mayor said, not only to make them the energy capital of the world, but to make them the clean energy capital of the world. So very, very excited.
Yeah. And Mr. Mayor, you said earlier, you are a big spread out city, and right, driving is a big part of the lifestyle of Houston. So it makes it more challenging than a small, more compact city like the city of Boston, where I live. So that's kind of interesting. Could you say a little bit more about how the various municipalities, you mentioned LA, Boston, others, how are you cooperating? What's the motivating factor for all the municipalities to come together?
Well, we recognize that we're all in this. We're all in this together. I mean, pollution, for example, doesn't stop at the city boundaries, and this is not just a one city deal. Quite frankly, it's just not limited to the cities in Texas or in the United States, but this is a global challenge, and it's going to require global solutions. San Antonio, Dallas, Austin, all the other cities are moving forward with a climate action plan. Look, I am, like I said, co-chair of the U.S. Climate Mayors. When the federal government decided to step away from the Paris Accord, it was very important for the rest of us, cities, of blue cities, red cities, didn't matter, to come together and say, no, this climate is, climate change is real. The science is real. And as a result, there are over 480 U.S. cities that have now signed on to the Paris Accord. So we're working together to achieve these objectives. But cities can't do it alone. I mean, we need partners, and we need partners like NRG. I want to thank Mauricio and NRG. They've been with the city of Houston, like he says, since 2001. And then prior to this year, for example, the city of Houston was 92% renewable in terms of powering our municipal facilities. Because of the arrangement that we have now with NRG, for the first time this year, we're now at 100%. And then at the same time, cities are very cost conscious. Our budgets is an important element for us. But it's not only are we at 100% renewable because of, for example, of NRG, but at the same time, it's saving us money over a 7-year period, over $65 million. So there are many other benefits that are flowing from it. And I think other cities are recognizing that, but we're all in this together.
Yeah, that's very good, and congratulations for getting there. So Mauricio, what were some of the things you did as NRG to get the city to do the 100% renewables?
They gave us a good deal.
One thing that we recognize is that our best bet to fight climate change is to have the kind of public-private partnership that we have been able to do with the city of Houston with the support of Major Turner. We recognize that there are some challenges when it comes to contracting renewable. The traditional way of contracting renewable was really left for the big companies, not necessarily for the small or medium-sized companies. And we wanted to make sure that we simplify that process, that we made it very, very easy to businesses to be able to access renewable energy, of any type in a very simple way. We introduced a product called Renewable Select, which was really taking all that complexity out. We would internalize that as a company, but our customers didn't have to see it and didn't have to experience it. Mm-hmm. So, as part of that Renewable Select, what we're doing is we're actually enabling renewable developers to build renewable plants here in the state of Texas, whether it's solar or wind. Just last year, we signed contracts for 1,600 megawatts of solar energy to be built here in the state of Texas. So that's one of the things that we're doing to help the city of Houston, achieve that 100% renewable goal that now they have.
Okay. Maybe I can follow up with you, Mauricio, a little bit around, broader energy strategy and thinking around, clean energy plans, energy transition. What is it that excites you about this journey for, moving to net zero carbon?
Yes, well, I mean, one of the things that excite me the most is technology, I think, is finally here in the power sector, in the energy sector. We're seeing the digitization of everything, and as I said before, the Internet of Things is enabling the Internet of Electricity. So one of the things that excite me the most is this customer empowerment that we're experiencing. People now have the opportunity to choose not only who they buy electricity from, but what type of electricity and when they use it. And I think that's going to be a game changer in our industry. Is this empowerment, not just to use electricity, but not to use electricity. I mean, I have said before that the cleanest megawatt that we can have is the one that we don't use. So energy efficiency is going to be significantly important. And I think the ingredients exist in Texas to be able to turn us into the renewable capital of the world by empowering customers. I mean, imagine what it would be if every single consumer had the right to choose renewable energy to supply their needs. That's, to me, is what excites me the most.
Yeah, it's somewhat counterintuitive, isn't it, that Houston, being the oil capital, could become renewable capital. But Mr. Mayor, you have tremendous renewable resources, isn't it? You have wind and solar, and they can help become renewable. So could you say a little bit, Mayor Turner, about what do you see as the next milestones of the climate action plan? Where do you want to go?
Well, let me just say, we are the city of Houston is the energy capital of the world. The question is, how do you continue to lead? And we have to lead in the energy transition. Look, I'm proud of our history. A century ago, through innovation, we discovered all. 1901, Spindletop. And then in the 1960s, we led the world to space innovation right here in the city of Houston. This is the largest medical center in the world, and innovations are taking place there. And now we are talking about climate change and how do we innovate. And so we are the energy capital, but we want to be a part of the energy transition. And the climate action plan is one of the key tools to lead us in that direction. And I'm very sensitive to it because it's about the city's on the front line. We have an obligation to do everything we can to protect the people who live in our city, and especially those who are in vulnerable populations, okay? People, in many cases, in vulnerable communities, they don't have a lot of choices. But at the same time, they deserve healthy living. We want to keep them around. We want to enhance their quality of life, okay? We want to save them money at the same time, and we want to give them meaningful, positive choices. Well, that's what the Climate Action Plan is all about. And that is, for example, with the contract that we have with NRG, providing solar, for example, there are communities within the city of Houston where there are, for example, 300 acres of contaminated land. And we're looking at how do we take that, reimagine, and turn that into, for example, one of the largest urban solar farms in the city of Houston. And so not only do we enhance the quality of life, but we also uplift those communities. Well, the utilization of renewable energy can help do that. So it can help drive a much cleaner environment. It can help drive our economy. We're working with, for example, with Bobby Tudor, who's now chairman of the Greater Houston Partnership, who's talked about energy transition. And then lastly, let me just say this. There's no federal mandate or state mandate for climate change. We don't have a state mandate here like California or New York. We don't have a city-owned utility, which means in order for us to achieve the goals that we have outlined in the Climate Action Plan, we have to work with companies like NRG and others in order to derive the benefits that we're seeking. So I'm excited about taking place. And let me tell you, to the extent we can achieve, and we will, the objectives of a climate action plan in the city of Houston, the energy capital of the world, where we have some of the largest emitters in the city, the ramifications of what we do can have a global impact as well.
Yeah, I can hear the excitement in your voice, Mr. Turner. But also, I mean, as I hear you, you're saying that it's the right thing to do, isn't it? It's not just kind of we have to, because it's going to impact the world, impact your city for many decades to come. So that's the.
Henry Thoreau once said that there's no greater force than an idea whose time has come. Well, I think that applies to this climate action plan. It is an idea whose time has come. And who would have thought years ago that companies would be standing with cities talking about climate change? And who would have thought in the city of Houston that the mayor of the energy capital of the world would be advocating and putting forth a climate action plan? But it is an idea whose time has come, and I'm excited about it because it will produce it will help generations to come, and I think that's the beauty of it.
Absolutely. So Mauricio, I just want to stay with this for one more minute around the energy capital, the renewable energy capital of the world. And both you and the mayor have talked about the importance of partnerships. How do you see how do you see the role of NRG in this transformation? You're actually transforming NRG itself to an energy company from a power utility. So multiple sets of transformation going on at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, well, let me just add one more thing to Mayor Turner's comment, which, I talk about Houston as the city of the future because I believe that it has all the ingredients to continue to be the energy capital of the world and now the renewable or clean energy capital of the world. I mean, if you take a step back and you think about these ingredients, we have a vibrant competitive energy market where a number of companies are working with the city and with many energy consumers. Mm-hmm. We have a customer empowerment with a very robust retail choice market where hundreds of companies are competing for the consumer's business. That's how consumers win. When we companies have to innovate and have to compete to provide them better products and services. We have a state and a city that is open for business, that is friendly for the business communities. And the character, the makeup of the city, one of the most diverse, if not the most diverse city in the country. I actually often talk about when they ask me about what is the future of electricity, I just, it doesn't take too long for me to say, just look at Houston, look at ERCOT. That's the future of electricity. Mm-hmm. So with that respect, the transition that we're undergoing as a company, just like the city of Houston has their climate action plan, we have been at the forefront of reducing also our carbon emissions. We understand as one of the largest power companies or energy companies in the country, we have a responsibility to reduce our carbon footprint and have a meaningful impact in the fight against climate change. Back in 2014, we started with one of the most aggressive carbon reduction goals in our industry, in alignment with the Paris Climate Agreement. And just last year, when I was looking at the progress that we were making, we were ahead of schedule. So when you talk about companies taking action and bold action, we actually, when I looked at that, I wanted to up the ante. And we were able to accelerate our carbon reduction goals to align now with the new climate imperative, which is limiting global warming by no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. Mm-hmm. And for us as a company, that means reducing our carbon emissions 50% by 2025 and achieving net zero by 2050. So we are aligning not just with the vision of the communities and the cities where we work, but also with our customers. This is the goal that our customers want. This is the goal that we have as a company. And this is the compass, the North Star that is informing the decisions that we're making in this transition. And as you can tell now, our transition has now focused around the customer, the consumer.
Yeah. Very, very powerful vision you have, Mauricio. I want to come back to electricity and transportation. So when I lived in Houston, Mr. Mayor, long time back, it was just a car city, and we had price of oil went up and down, and we went up and down. But of course, now there is electric cars, and you have a program called Evolve. So can you say a little bit about that program, and how did it start, and what is your vision for that Evolve program?
And I'm excited to talk about Evolve because when I came into office in 2016, I'll never forget, I went to Austin and spoke before the Texas Department of Transportation. Mm-hmm. And what I said to them is that now is the time for a paradigm shift when we're talking about transportation, transit, mobility. We cannot continue to do things the way we have done it. It's not just about roadway expansion or building roadway capacity. We have to be able to carry more people without necessarily expanding the roadway capacity, and it will be good for everyone. Evolve Houston is one of those initiatives. Thanks again to NRG and its strong participation, and Shell, University of Houston. There are different components that have come together to talk about electrifying our city, providing more electric charge stations within the city, providing people with additional options. So that it's not just one option and that's it. But this is the most diverse city in the United States, which also means that we should have very diverse options, okay? And it's building that infrastructure. If you make it available, people will utilize it. So we can help to, in our own way, to incentivize the marketplace. But it's going to require working with the private sector, working with academia and others for that critical infrastructure that's needed. And look, I don't want to be second to anybody. I appreciate what California is doing, and I applaud them and what other places are doing outside of the United States. But I want to see Evolve move in a very impactful way, because it is a vital component of the climate action plan in helping to reduce emissions even more. And you can only do that by providing people with those options so that we are not so car-centric, but we are providing mass transportation and making other options available. So I'm excited about it. I appreciate the support that we've received from NRG and others, and want to build on that. I want more charge stations in the city of Houston sooner than later. I think an NRG can help to make that happen.
So, Mauricio, how do you respond to that? And also your perspective on electrification of transportation. What's the vision?
Yes. Well, first of all, we're very proud of the public-private partnership that we have with the City of Houston on Evolve, and more importantly, for the leadership that Mayor Turner has given us in this respect. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we want to be serious about decarbonizing our economy, we cannot do it alone in the power sector. We really need to tackle the transportation sector. And I've been very proud of what the electricity sector has done in terms of reducing their carbon emissions. We need to do more. I mean, since 2005, the industry has reduced emissions close to 30%. We as a company, in the same time period, we have reduced our carbon emissions by over 50%. And, in a company that the size of NRG and with the impact, I mean, just to put it in perspective, I mean, that is equivalent to taking, almost 10 million cars off the road every year. And for those of you who are thinking about electric vehicles, that's almost double the amount of the impact that electric vehicles have in the world, so double. And I believe we need to bring the level of change that we're seeing in the electric side, in the transportation side. I think we all recognize that electricity is going to be a bigger part of our future, our energy future. And to the extent that we can electrify transportation, we can also provide, greater optionality, as Mayor Turner was describing, because to the extent that the grid is becoming cleaner, it also accelerates the economy-wide decarbonization if we electrify transportation. So, we're very, very excited about being part of the Evolve. We support these ambitious goals that the Major Turner has provided, and more importantly, the pillars of this public-private partnership, encouraging the entrepreneurial spirit, attracting private capital to build those charging stations, and provide consumers with greater choices through a vibrant retail market that we have in Houston. I mean, all of those are ingredients and can be catalyst to achieve the goals that Major Turner has outlined in his plan.
Yeah, and I would agree with both of you, because it's sort of counterintuitive to say electric transportation in one of the largest cities in the country, in Houston, but you have such a huge amount of clean energy coming in from solar and wind that it would be truly a clean transportation and not just EVs, which are powered by, fossil fuels. So this is a very positive development. I mean, do you have a view, Mr. Mayor, as to by say next 5 or 10 years, do you have any targets on what level of charging stations you want to have?
This is what's important to me is that we've established some good momentum. If you don't constantly build on it, you can lose it. I'm excited, for example, about this week because again, the focus is on climate change and the climate action plan and what we are doing, and we're talking to our various partners. I'm simply encouraging, we can do more the more people invest in the initiatives that we put forth. Evolve is a great driver, okay? But we're still a long way from where it needs to be. And so I'm still encouraging, for example, companies like NRG and others to invest even more in order to create that added momentum, okay? And the benefits will be exponential, okay? So it has started. Is it where I want it to be? No. Do we need more resources and people to invest in it more? We do. I appreciate the leadership of people like Elizabeth Bry and Ryan Martin, who have taken leadership, for example, of Evolve. But I'm also encouraging more participants and investors and resources so that we can move it forward. Look, this is Houston, Texas. And to the extent we can further electrify the marketplace, provide additional options, reduce the carbon footprint, meet our goals much sooner, than just 2050, but do it sooner. I think all of us will win and all of us will benefit. I don't want to just talk about being the energy capital of the world as if we are defending our title. I want us to continue to lead in this energy transition. And I want us to be the global leader. And so we have the partners are here in the city of Houston. Okay, they're here. But I simply want us now to be very focused, very intentional, and just say, look, I know these are the goals. But let's see how quickly we can achieve these goals by working with people in the community, the customers that Mauricio talked about, and I love that because it's all about the customers. It's all about the people that we serve. It's all about the people in these communities, these neighborhoods. That's what it's about. And they want this to happen. They don't just want us to talk about it. They want to see the results, and they want us to see the results sooner because they're constantly having to prepare for these storms that are coming with greater frequency and greater intensity.
Yeah. So before we conclude, I would like to ask both of you a call to action, which you're already saying, Mayor Turner. What are one or two things you would ask your fellow Houstonians to do as part of their own climate action plan?
Well, devising the climate action plan was the easy part. Implementing the climate action plan is when the work really needs. And so I would encourage people to sign up to be a part of our working groups at www.houstontx.gov, houstontx.gov, and sign up. And because it has to be, you have to take into the input of everyone. You need a lot of participants to drive this. to make things happen. So we encourage people in our community, and because we want to make sure we're listening to them and we're being true to what we've already started. And then I certainly want to thank, and I don't take for granted the participation of people like NRG. And I certainly appreciate that. And I don't want to take any of our companies for granted. Appreciate their support. I certainly want to encourage others to come along as well. And then to the extent people can do more, I certainly would appreciate that. Something that we say all the time at my church, for example, we say that it's not equal in giving, it's equal in sacrifice. And so to the extent one can do more, we encourage people to do more. All I know is that this is the moment, this is the time, because 30 years from now, the question is, what do we want people to say about what we did, now? And I hope that they will be able to say that we were bold enough, brave enough, and transformative enough that we were the catalyst for the change that gave this world to many generations to come.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mauricio, a couple of call to action.
Well, it's hard to follow Mayor Turner after what he just said, but let me just put it in this way. A call to action is for everyone who has the right to choose their energy, to exercise that right. Not everyone in our country has the ability to choose their own energy provider. Not everyone in the country has the ability to choose where their energy is coming from. So I think we all need to just embrace what we have, the fact that we can actually choose from many companies that are trying to get our business, and exercise that right to choose clean energy. You have hundreds of different options from your power providers. Many of them are 100% solar, 100% wind. So, take the time to exercise that right, because when you choose those plans that are consistent with your beliefs, are consistent with your values, then it helps us and it helps the city accelerate that energy transition that we have been talking about, not just improving our communities, making them more healthier, but modernizing also the energy mix right here in Texas. So that's what I would say as the call to action. And thank you, Atul, for having me here. Thank you for Major Turner for this conversation. As always, incredibly insightful. And I look forward for the next one.
Thank you. Thank you, Mauricio.
Thank you to you, Mayor Turner. Thank you, Mauricio Gutierrez, CEO of NRG. And thank you to everybody who is watching it. As you know, this is the very first event of the Houston Climate Week. Please look out for many more events throughout the week and learn a lot about what's going on in the city of Houston, learn about the Climate Action Plan, and do one or two things which both Mayor Turner and Mauricio has talked about. So with that, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mauricio.
Thank you, Mayor Turner. Thank you, too.
Thank you.